What's up, everybody? It is Broken Havoc here, right here on the Broken Havoc podcast. Here to review AEW Dynamite from April 28th, 2021. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good show. I enjoyed the show. I felt like the beginning of the show was a little bit too rushed, if that makes any sense. But overall, I thought this was an awesome show. Of course, next week we got Blood and Guts, which is a special episode of Dynamite, which is going to be live, and it's going to feature the Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle, which is going to be an awesome match, and I do believe that will pull a high rating. I predict a 1.5. At first I predicted a 2 rating, but I think that was too far, way too far, that AEW, I don't think they will reach a 2 until maybe up till maybe the end of this year or maybe early on next year. I think it's going to be a while till they try to hit that 2, but it is what it is. The beginning of the show, we got Hangman Adam Page versus the FTW champion, Brian Cage, part of Team Taz. As soon as Adam Page makes his entrance, Brian Cage attacks him from behind with the FTW title. Then we get a brawl that breaks out between Team Taz and the Dark Order. We get a powerbomb by Brian Cage on the mini-ramp on Hangman, and then the match starts. Brian is working on Adam Page, chops in the corner by Cage, belly-to-belly suplex by Cage on Hangman. Cage is working on Hangman. We get a cover and a 2 count by Cage. He sends Hangman outside of the ring. Hangman tries to fight back. Cage sends Hangman on the guardrail. Throws Hangman in the apron. Chops by Cage. We get a slam by Cage outside the ring. Both get back in the ring. We get a cover by Cage, but gets a 2 count. Throws Hangman. We get a standing moonsault by Cage, which looked impressive, by the way, but Hangman counters with the knees up. We got a couple thrust kicks by Cage. Superplex from the ropes by Cage on Hangman. We get a 2 count. Cage is about to hit the brainbuster but Hangman escapes. Hangman goes over the top rope, but Cage catches Hangman. Hangman sends Cage on the ring post. We get a moonsault off the top turnbuckle by Hangman on Cage. Takes Cage in the ring. Hangman tries to do a buckshot lariat, but Cage counters with a huge slam, which looked impressive. Then we get a buckle bomb by Brian Cage, and then Brian Cage finishes the match by hitting the drill claw, which is his finisher. And for the 3, he wins the match. Overall thoughts on this match, I thought this was not a bad match. A lot of people, especially on Twitter, were really shocked that Hangman lost because he is the number one ranked wrestler in the rankings, and everybody expects him to face Omega. But I don't think this is going to affect Hangman at all. I mean, Hangman is the babyface, and honestly, he's going to get his revenge, of course, and he's going to get his win back. It's not like, I don't think it's a big deal, but at the same time, you have to realize that Brian Cage, I mean, they have to do something with Brian Cage, and I feel like Brian Cage beating Hangman at least makes him look strong and develops his strength as a heel, in my opinion. But it is what it is. I thought it was not a bad match, not the best match of the night, but I thought it was a pretty good match. Then we get Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, Don Callis and the Good Brothers backstage inside a limo. As you know, last week, Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston destroyed the Elite trailer, which looked pretty sick. It actually, watching that segment last week actually literally reminded me of WCW with things like the NWO were doing. That looked like WCW. I'm not going to lie. The camera work, everything. If you saw that in WWE, it would work, but I feel like the camera work would be a little bit different. I feel like the camera work in AEW felt a little more edgy, if that makes any sense, but that was an awesome segment. So, of course, they're in the limo. Kenny Omega, of course, last Sunday at Rebellion won the Impact Unified title, and he's now the Impact World Champion, the AAA Mega Champion, and now the AEW World Champion. He talks about what happened in that match. He says he is not afraid, and then all of a sudden, he just basically cuts a typical heelish promo. Omega, of course, doing the best work of his career right now. I feel like he's getting there. Don Callis is awesome. At first, Don Callis was but Don Callis now, awesome character. I really enjoy Don Callis' character. Then we get literally some mess up when it comes to the limo. Michael Nakazawa, of course, pushes the wrong button and says Nakazawa will face Eddie Kingston later on tonight, which, as you guys may know, that match didn't happen. Now we get one of the best matches of the night. Mike and Matt Sydal versus the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. Don Callis is on commentary because, as you know, the Young Bucks are now heels. Mike Sydal and Matt Jackson start the match. Now, one thing to note on this match, while I was taking notes, you know a match is so good when you have, when you're having trouble taking notes because there's a lot of high spots and a lot of stuff that's going on. That's how you know it's a good match. But another thing that caught me off guard was the fact that we had two Matts in this match. Matt Jackson and Matt Sydal, that it was so confusing, and it took longer for me to write the notes while watching the match because, literally, you have two Matts out there, and it's confusing. It's so funny, but it is what it is. The match starts. Mike Sydal and Matt Jackson start the match. We get a standing moonsault by Mike. Nick tags in. Matt Sydal tags in. Matt is working on Nick. We get a double team by Mike and Matt Sydal. Stereo dropkick by the Sydal brothers. Matt Jackson tags in. We get a clothesline by Mike Sydal on Nick Jackson. We get a super kick by Matt Jackson on Mike Sydal. The Young Bucks are working on the Sydal brothers. We get a springboard dropkick by Nick Jackson. Double clothesline by Nick Jackson on Nick Sydal. We get a Matt rolled Nick out of the ring and copies basically what Nick Jackson did by literally just laying on the floor, which made no sense. I don't think he was the legal man. We get an enziguri by Mike Sydal on Matt Jackson. Matt Sydal tags in, works on Matt Jackson. We get a brainbuster by Matt Sydal on Matt Jackson. We get a cover, but a 2 count. We get a kick by Matt Sydal, a Meltzer driver. Then Matt Sydal escapes it and works on Matt Jackson. Matt and Mike hit Matt Jackson from the top rope together. Matt Sydal takes down all of the Young Bucks, so both Matt and Nick. Crucifix by Matt Sydal on Matt Jackson. We get a 2 count. Matt Sydal sends Matt Jackson to the top. Nick tries to help Matt. We get a Hurricane Rana, beautiful Hurricane Rana, by the way, by Matt Sydal. Matt ducks when Sydal was about to pull a move on the top turnbuckle. Mike Sydal tags in. Then, I swear to you, he actually did this. Matt Jackson pulled a Johnny Cage low blow. Literally, he did a split and then just knocked him right in the crotch. He pulled a Johnny Cage. He pulled a Johnny Cage low blow, which looked badass, by the way. I was like, bruh. Even Tony Schiavone was like, hey, Johnny Cage low blow, which was pretty sick. Then we get a super kick on Matt Sydal, and then we get a BTE trigger on Mike Sydal, and then for the 3 count, they win the match. Overall thoughts on this match? I thought this match was had a lot of spots, a lot of high spots, of course. I mean, Matt Sydal, a.k.a. if you guys remember him as Evan Bourne in WWE, this guy's crazy. And what I mean by crazy is that he knows how to he's really good in the ring, really talented, and does a lot of high spots. And the Young Bucks are known for their high spots. Their super kicks, their Meltzer drivers, their BTE triggers, all that stuff. And they were pretty sick in this match. I really enjoyed it. Next up, we get SCU. They come in to confront the Young Bucks. Kazarian says that they're these new Young Bucks, and Daniel says that they will take those titles in the future. And they did mention, of course, Kazarian mentioned in this promo that, if whoever loses this match, if they ever lose a match, if SCU loses a match, they will no longer be a team together. So they're basically teasing, from a fan's point of view, they're basically teasing that SCU is going to be no more. They are going to be facing the Young Bucks. When, I don't know, but I assume that the Young Bucks are going to retain the AEW tag titles. That's just my opinion. But yeah, overall, awesome segment. I really enjoyed it. Next up, we get a Jade Cargill segment, or video package. Basically, it's showing her talking about, how all these managers are basically wanting to hire her, quote unquote, hire her as a managerial, and she talks about how they want a pay cut and she makes her own money, all that stuff. Look, as Jade Cargill says, she's a bad bitch. She says that she makes her own money. She says she makes her own money, and yeah. Now, what team do I think that Jade will fit best in? I honestly think that she fits best in Team Taz. Now, I say Team Taz is because Team Taz kind of went downhill. I feel like the inclusion of Jade Cargill Yeah, she is kind of green still, but like I do think that she's improving drastically. I mean, her first match was in a tag match with Shaquille O'Neal, which looked awesome, by the way. She really impressed me. She looked really good in the match. And yeah, I do think that she will fit well in Team Taz, and I think that she will probably make a good career out of herself. And I don't think she'll win the title anytime soon. Maybe my prediction is by like at least like maybe next year she'll win the title. But now I feel like she's still a little bit green, so like she needs to work more matches. I don't know if she's working any matches on Dark because I don't watch Dark or Dark Elevation. So yeah, I don't know if she's wrestling on those shows. If you guys want, you guys can put in the comments down below. All right, we get Penta El Zero versus the man who puts his hands in his pockets, Orange Cassidy, who's awesome, by the way. So in the beginning of the match, well, first off, this match was pretty sick. I really enjoyed this match as well. The two best matches of the night was the tag match between the Sydal Brothers and the Young Bucks, and this match, Penta El Zero and Orange Cassidy. And basically the best like segment of the night was, of course, the Inner Circle and Pinnacle parlay, because that builds to Blood and Guts next week. But yeah, a couple notes on this match. Both Penta and Orange Cassidy like stall each other. Orange constantly tries to put his pocket maneuver, basically try to put his hands in his pockets, but Penta does not let him. Penta takes off his gloves and throws it to Alex Abrahante, who is his quote unquote manager. I don't even know if he's a manager. Or spokesman for Pentagon. Then Penta goes at Cassidy's face. Cassidy takes off his glasses and tries to throw them at Trent, but literally misses, and Trent's like, bro, I was right here, which was pretty funny. Then all of a sudden, Cassidy kicks Pentagon in devastating fashion. And I mean, he kicked him like crazy, man. It was just so sick. Like, he just kicked him like crazy. It was so awesome. He just kicked him like this. That's Orange Cassidy for you. A lot of guys in the business hate his gimmick, but I love his gimmick. It's something special, you know what I mean? He really didn't kick in devastating fashion, but you know what I mean. You know Orange Cassidy. All right. We get a thrust kick, but Penta misses. Cassidy works on Pentagon. We got a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker by Pentagon on Cassidy. Forearm in the corner on Cassidy. Crucifix by Cassidy, then a 2 count. Cassidy tries to do a suicide dive. Penta catches him and throws Cassidy in the apron, which that hurt like crazy. Penta kicks Cassidy in the knee outside the ring, sends Cassidy in the ring, works on Cassidy. We get a thrust kick and Pentagon's known for his thrust kicks. Thrust kick by Pentagon on Cassidy. Continues to work on Cassidy. Kicks in the knee of Cassidy in the corner. Enziguri in the corner by Pentagon on Cassidy. Then we got a second Enziguri in the corner by Pentagon on Cassidy. Cassidy hits Penta on the top turnbuckle. Diving crossbody by Orange Cassidy. Tries to do a DDT, but Penta counters in a brainbuster. Right hands by Cassidy. Penta counters in devastating fashion. Cover in a 2 count. Penta attempts to go for an arm breaker. Cassidy fights back and puts his hands in his pockets like he usually does. Repeated stomps on Cassidy. We got a thrust kick by Cassidy, then a thrust kick by Penta. Then we get a second thrust kick by Pentagon. Then we get the one and only Canadian Destroyer, which is the best finishing move in professional wrestling. Shout out to Petey Williams. He probably didn't watch this video anyway. We get a beach break counter by Cassidy, which looked sick. We get a couple kicks by Pentagon. We get a running thrust kick in the corner by Pentagon. Cassidy counters the brainbuster into a cutter. We get a diving DDT from the top on Cassidy. Cassidy hits a spinning DDT, which looked sick. We get a cover, but a 2 count. Alex Abrahante, of course, grabs the microphone, just like last week, and tries to speak on the mic, but Cassidy stops him. Penta tries to go for a package pile driver, but Cassidy counters and hits Pentagon with a microphone in heel fashion, even though he's the babyface, and wins the match. Overall, what are my thoughts on this match? I thought it was a pretty fun match to watch. I mean, Pentagon is a star. Him and Rey Fenix are like one of the best tag teams in the world right now. But like Pentagon on his own is awesome, and he is a badass. Cassidy, a lot of people call him a comedy act, but Cassidy's hilarious. If you want like comedy in wrestling, it's Orange Cassidy. But at the same time, he proves his craft in the ring. A lot of guys like Jim Cornette really like just talk shit about him all the time, and basically shits on his gimmick all the time. But honestly, I do think that Orange Cassidy knows how to knows how to wrestle, and if you've seen his matches on the independent circuit, like, he really knows how to wrestle. Like, I've seen his match with who was it? Jordan Grace, which was an indie match, and I really enjoyed that match. It was pretty funny, but at the same time, it was a really good match. So yeah, Orange Cassidy is awesome, and I love Best Friends. They're an awesome duo, and of course, Kris Statlander is involved with that faction as well. If you want to call it a faction, because I don't think they are. They're a tag team. All right, we get Tony Schiavone, a backstage interview with Tony Schiavone. Now, granted, this was a taped show, but it's like Tony Schiavone is teleporting everywhere. Tony Schiavone is backstage with the one and only Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. She says that she's going to work up the rankings, says that she's not on the top of the food chain, but also is on the top to win. She's on top of the win-loss records, basically. She's on top of the rankings. She's number one. And she says that she is the face of the women's division, which, who can disagree? Britt Baker is a star in the making. What are you talking about? And I do think that she will beat Sheeta at Double or Nothing. It's only right. I mean, like, her lights out match or unsanctioned match with Thunder Rosa was pretty awesome match. I mean, one of the best women's matches I've ever seen. And Thunder Rosa's another one. She's great. And I do think that Britt Baker is going to beat Sheeta for the AEW Women's title. All right. Now we get the next segment, which I thought was the best segment of the night. 1 week before Blood and Guts. Next week, of course, the Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle. War Games. Now, one thing I was always concerned about, I don't want to say concerned, but confused about, is they're going to do this match at Daly's place, which is an amphitheater, not an arena. How are they going to fit 2 rings in an amphitheater? That was a confusing thing that I always thought of, but I think they got it all planned out. Fun fact, I was actually supposed to go to Blood and Guts last year at Prudential Center, but Blood and Guts got postponed. So now, of course, we got Blood and Guts next week in Jacksonville, of course. And so we got Tony Schiavone just in the middle between the two factions. And security, when the Pinnacle comes out, security comes out to, like, quote-unquote protect them. The Inner Circle comes out with motorcycle security, which looked awesome, by the way. The Inner Circle is so cool right now. All right, and next up we got, like, all the members just, like, face off. Tony Schiavone's, like, in the middle, just talking about the rules of the match and how it's all going to play out and stuff. And then Sean Spears basically interrupts Schiavone. They were gonna do a coin toss about who gets the advantage in the match, but Sean Spears says that they shouldn't do a coin toss and that, you know, they should have the advantage because they were basically lured into this match. And yeah, so we got Sammy Guevara and Sean Spears just go back and forth in this confrontation. What I love about this feud is that it's been building up for months. Now, granted, MJF's new faction, the Pinnacle, which is like the modern day Four Horsemen, formed like early last month or 2 months ago. But like at the same time, I mean, like, I feel like they made an immediate impact. And I love the fact that you had the tag teams, Santana and Ortiz and FTR, from each specific faction just go back and forth at one another, just like talking and stuff. Then you had the mid-carders, if you want to call them mid-carders. Sammy Guevara. I do agree in a couple years, Sammy Guevara is going to be AEW World Champion. I mean, this guy's a star in the making. Sammy Guevara and just Sean Spears just go back and forth. He literally just mentioned that, you know, the reason why he's in this faction is because he was a failure in AEW, and the reason why he came to AEW is because he was a failure in the other company that he worked, that being WWE, of course, because Sean Spears used to be Ty Dillinger, if you guys don't know, in WWE, but that didn't work out too well for him, so he went to AEW. Then all of a sudden, you know, you got Santana and Ortiz and FTR just go back and forth. Santana is a great promo, by the way. Santana is awesome. And then we get the creme de la creme. Jericho and MJF just go back and forth. Jericho just literally, MJF was great in this promo, but Jericho just went at MJF. Talked about, you know, how he was, you know, in WCW and like he was wrestling matches in Japan and how he earned respect from the guys in Japan and Mexico, all that stuff. Literally, Jericho was awesome in this segment. And you really, like, if this was like a pay-per-view worthy match, if this match was happening on pay-per-view, which a lot of people say it should have happened on pay-per-view, a lot of people said that it should have happened at Double or Nothing because it makes sense. Even though Double or Nothing is a Vegas-themed pay-per-view, the name Double or Nothing makes sense because the Blood and Guts match is going to have 2 rings instead of 1. But I mean, if this was happening in a pay-per-view, like, literally, this would convince you to, like, oh yeah, I'm paying for this show. But of course, it's going to be on television next week. And yeah, this was an amazing promo by Jericho. Jericho just went off on MJF, just literally put him to bed. But like, what I loved about this segment in particular is, like, there was no brawl. Like, if this match happened in, like, WWE, for example, like, what they would have done for the go home show is that they would have had a segment and then have a brawl and try to get you, like, hyped for the match. What they did here was literally just went off at each other. Both factions just, like, went head to head in verbal confrontation, and that's what I really like. And there was no brawls, no nothing, and that's what I really loved. But, like, at the same time, I feel like the talking really just, like, hit you really hard, and you were like, wow, these guys hate each other, and now they're gonna fight it out next week. And that's what I'm excited about. Now, Blood and Guts next week, as we all thought that this was going to be a 1-card show, and a lot of people were concerned that, oh my God, we're going to have a 2-hour match. No, that's not the case. Actually, we actually have a stacked card next week. Now, my assumption when it comes to these matches is that the undercard is going to take place at least throughout the first hour of the show, and then when we get right to the second hour, that's when we get the Blood and Guts match. So the card, of course, we got the Blood and Guts match. We got Pinnacle versus Inner Circle. But the undercard is going to be Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa versus Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston, which is going to be an awesome match, by the way. Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston are one of a kind, and, dude, those guys will be AEW Tag Team Champions. Guaranteed it. We get Britt Baker, of course, in action. They haven't named her opponent, but we'll find out next week. And it's going to be a live show, too. That's going to be awesome. We got SCU versus Jurassic Express versus the Varsity Blondes versus the Acclaimed. The winner will get a World Tag Team title shot on May 12th on Dynamite. And also we got Cody Rhodes versus QT Marshall. And also, this announcement was a shocker to me. Now, I know that AEW does have a partnership with New Japan, but this was a shocker. So we got Jon Moxley defending the IWGP US Heavyweight title. As you guys know, when Jon Moxley was the AEW World Champion, they did not mention that he was the current IWGP United States Champion, but he does have a contract which states that he's not only able to work AEW dates, but he's also able to work New Japan dates. So this was a shocker. Jon Moxley will defend his IWGP US title against Yuji Nagata, which, as you guys know, if you guys don't know, he's a big star in New Japan. He wrestled a couple matches in WCW. He had a run in WCW back in the late 90s, but still wrestles to this day in New Japan. And a lot of people were really excited because Yuji Nagata, of course, used to wrestle for WCW, and a lot of people are going to be like, "Hey, welcome back to TNT, Yuji Nagata." So yeah, that's a shocker. Now, I'm not the biggest New Japan watcher, but I know who Yuji Nagata is. I haven't seen a lot of his matches, but I've seen a couple clips there and there of Yuji Nagata. Apparently, he's still great. Okay, that sounded kind of disrespectful, but you know what I mean. He still got it. He's in his mid 40s. Correcting me if I'm wrong, but no, he's actually 53 years old. All right. So yeah, Jon Moxley's going to be defending his title against Yuji Nagata, which is going to be awesome, by the way. We got a U.S. title match, an IWGP U.S. title match on Dynamite, which is going to be awesome. But that's going to happen on May 12th. So yeah. So apparently May 12th is going to be a stacked card. Next week's card is going to be stacked, but yeah, it's going to be awesome. All right, next segment we got Eddie Kingston. We were supposed to get Eddie Kingston versus Michael Nakazawa, but instead Eddie Kingston does not want to face Michael Nakazawa, and he calls out Kenny Omega and tells Nakazawa to get out of the ring. Omega comes out and says that he has Nakazawa. Nakazawa hits Kingston, and Kingston slams him and hits a back fist, which looks crazy. Kingston is basically about to break the ankle of Michael Nakazawa. Omega basically lets him because, Omega's a heel. He doesn't care. But Kingston is like, nah, I'm not going to break his ankle. Then later, Moxley later attacks Omega from behind through the entrance tunnel. And Omega's about to get his ankle broken with the chair put by Eddie Kingston. And Kingston and Moxley basically stated that they want a tag team match with Nakazawa and Omega. And Don Callis, a.k.a. Cyrus the Virus in ECW. Callis is just screaming, yes, 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 you'll get the match. And next week at Blood and Guts, we got Omega and Nakazawa versus Moxley and Kingston. All right. Next segment, we got Taz backstage with Tony Schiavone. Talks about Christian Cage and, his impact he made in AEW. I love the fact that Christian Cage is using his TNA theme, by the way. Because, AEW has that partnership with Impact, and, Impact used to be TNA. I'm glad that Christian Cage is using his old TNA theme, by the way. That's just awesome. Christian says that, Taz cannot back up a lot of the things that he says, unlike many years ago where he used to wrestle and backed up a lot of the stuff that he said in the ring. He says that he will not leech off of Team Taz, and Christian says that he believes in win or learn. Christian says that the members of Team Taz will one day realize that they were better off without Taz. Ouch. That was a crazy burn right there, as Kelso would state. All right. We got Penelope Ford with Kip Sabian versus Kris Statlander with Orange Cassidy. Overall thoughts on this match? I thought this was a pretty good match. I mean, Kris Statlander is awesome. I'm glad she's back from injury. Kris Statlander is a really good wrestler. Penelope Ford is also great. I mean, I remember her match with Hikaru Shida a few months ago. I believe it was in September, or I think it was last year during the summer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they had a match on Dynamite for the title, and I thought it was a pretty good match. I also think Penelope Ford is a star. But yeah, both Statlander and Ford fight it out. We get a power slam by Statlander on Ford. We get a military press by Statlander. Ford tries to pull Statlander outside of the ring. We get a forearm by Statlander. A driving knee drop by Ford on Statlander. Exchange right hands by both wrestlers. Multiple diving uppercuts by Statlander. Knee to the side of the head on Ford. Blue Thunder Bomb by Kris Statlander. Then we later get a German suplex by Penelope Ford. She drives Statlander to the middle turnbuckle. Flipping neckbreaker by Ford. We get a cover, but a 2 count. A roundhouse kick by Statlander. A solar eclipse by Statlander on Ford. Cover and a 2 count. Multiple right forearms by Statlander. Ford hits a back kick on Statlander. Then we get a cover, but a 2 count. Kip Sabian tries to interfere, but Cassidy stops Sabian from interfering in the match. Statlander hits her finisher, the Big Bang Theory, and she wins the match. Overall, great match. I like Kris Statlander. She's great. Penelope Ford, another one. She's great as well. Next up, we got a match that I really didn't care about. The Factory, which is QT Marshall's new faction. And as a lot of people stated, and as I stated last week, a lot of people are complaining that AEW has a lot of factions. They're basically pulling a WCW, and they're having a lot of freaking factions. As you know, WCW loved their factions, but AEW has a lot of factions right now, and I mean a lot of factions. But I do think the reason why they are having a lot of factions now is to try to build the foundation of introducing trios titles. Because if you're introducing factions for the sake of introducing factions, what's the reason behind it? I think there's a reason behind it, and I think that in the coming months, I think they're going to be introducing trios titles, which they desperately need right now, considering the amount of factions that these people have. All right, so we got the Factory versus the Nightmare Family. So the Factory comes out in the Nightmare Express, which is their bus, and all members fight it out. Billy Gunn sends Aaron Solo to the guardrail. QT Marshall is working on Lee Johnson. Kick by QT on Billy Gunn. Anthony Ogogo works on Billy Gunn. Nick Comoroto hits the backbreaker on Billy Gunn. Comoroto applies a bear hug on Gunn. Gunn fights back. Gunn sends Comoroto to the corner. Dustin Rhodes tags in, works on Comoroto. Ogogo fights back with a back elbow. QT works on Dustin outside the ring. QT drop kicks Dustin. Continues to work on Dustin. Power slam by Dustin on QT Marshall. Lee Johnson tags in and works on Eric Solo. Neckbreaker on Solo. A blue thunder bomb by Solo by Lee Johnson. Anthony Ogogo interferes. QT covers Lee Johnson and wins the match. Then all of a sudden, after the match, Nick Comoroto hits Dustin with a cowbell. The Gun Club, which is Billy Gunn's sons, attack QT Marshall. We get a drop kick by Colton Gunn. The Factory comes in. Eric Solo and Nick Comoroto attack the Gun Club. QT tries to go for the Nightmare Express. Then all of a sudden, as soon as QT Marshall is trying to head back into the bus, Cody Rhodes comes in out of nowhere. And he basically attacks QT. QT's on the top of the bus. Cody and QT are fighting on the top of the bus. Cody applies the figure 4 on the top of the bus. And yeah, that was the whole match and the whole brawl after the match. Overall, what are my thoughts? I didn't really care for this match. QT's new faction, they're going to have to grow on me. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do with QT Marshall, but at the same time, I feel like I don't really care about it. Like, I just really don't. But next week we got QT Marshall versus Cody Rhodes. Next week got Blood and Guts. Again, I assume it's going to be in the first hour of the show, and the second hour is just going to be the entire Blood and Guts match. Because we originally we all thought it was only going to be a one match show, but some people were kind of concerned mainly because of the fact that how are we going to have a War Games match for 2 hours? Nobody's going to want to watch a 2-hour match. You know what I mean? So you have to have an undercard. All right. Kip Sabian is backstage and meets up with Miro. Miro attacks Kip Sabian and says that nobody will stop him and says that he will pay his dues. Yes, we all have to pay our dues in this business. What are my thoughts on Miro? Miro, I feel like, has been underused in AEW. I mean, he's been underused more in WWE, but when he went to AEW, he had honestly, like, yes, he had a partner with Kip. He had to be in a team with Kip Sabian. I mean, like, really, makes no sense. In my opinion, that Miro is going to win the TNT title. My assumption is that Miro will face Darby Allin for the TNT title at Double or Nothing. I believe it's May 30th, the pay-per-view. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I do believe that Miro will go over in that match, and he will win. He will win the TNT title in that pay-per-view. They need to do something with Miro. I cannot stand the fact that these people are doing nothing with Miro. I mean, WWE did Rusev. I mean, he used to be Rusev in WWE. They did him worse. But the fact that AEW so far did nothing with Miro, and finally they're trying to be like, all right, let's green light this and let's actually do something with Miro. I mean, like, they should have done something with Miro months ago. I mean, that's just my opinion. They should have done something with him months ago, but I do believe he will win the TNT title. They have to, and he will have a long run at that title, in my opinion. But yeah. All right. Main event, we got, of course, a TNT Championship match. Darby Allin with Sting versus Dark Order's 10. Overall thoughts on this match? I mean, I love the fact that they are putting a lot of emphasis on their mid-card title. And yes, it is a mid-card title, but at the same time, it's on the level as the AEW World title. It's not like WWE where they really just don't care about their mid-card titles. Mid-card is like mid-card to these people, and it's not in a good way when it comes to WWE. Their U.S. title and Intercontinental title really don't mean anything in their current shows. AEW did something with the TNT title, and what they did with the TNT title is they are putting it on the line every single week, and that's what I really love, because it's supposed to be a television title, and that's what it is. So I really enjoy the fact that AEW is putting a lot of emphasis on the TNT Championship. All right, beginning of the match, both lock up. We got a side headlock by Darby Allin, a backbreaker by 10 on Darby Allin, right hand in the corner by Darby Allin on 10, multiple hammer throws in the corner by 10 on Darby Allin. 10 looks for a powerbomb, but Darby escapes and hits the knee of 10. Shoulder block by 10 when Darby jumps off the top rope. 10 works on Darby Allin for a while during commercial break. Darby fights back with a couple knife-edge chops. Clothesline in the corner by 10. Right hand by Darby, but kicks in the face by 10. Darby counters with a gorilla press. Cover and 2 count. We get a spine buster by 10. A single arm power bomb by 10. We get a cover and a 2 count. Then later we got a stunner by Darby. We get an arm bar applied by Darby Allin. Darby continues to work on the arm of 10. We get a couple stomps on 10. 10 sends Darby on the guardrail on the apron. Darby's on the top. We get a swanton by Darby outside of the ring on 10. Sting faces Dark Order. Ethan Page slams Darby Allin on the ring post. Then we get a German suplex by 10 on Darby. We get a cover and a 2 count. Darby targets the eyes of the mask on 10. Then we get a coffin drop, but 10 catches Darby with a full Nelson. Darby counters with a roll-up and a 3 count. Darby Allin retains the TNT Championship. Then after the match, 10 faces Darby, and Darby grabs the armband of 10. That has the name, of course, the late, great, the one and only Brody Lee. Pays tribute to Brody Lee We all miss him. Brody Lee was a fantastic human being and a fantastic wrestler, and I'm glad that they pay tribute to him in this light as well. And, they're keeping that Brody Lee's legacy alive, and I really enjoy that. Ethan Page tries to come in the ring, but Darby sees it. Then Scorpio Sky from behind attacks Sting and targets the knee. Heel hook by Scorpio Sky on Sting. Lance Archer comes in for the save, and the show ends. What are my thoughts on this show? I thought it was a pretty good show, and it was a taped show. I felt like the beginning of the show was a little rushed. A lot of people were kind of concerned about Hangman, but it is what it is. I feel like Hangman will get his win back, and he will still face Omega. Now, the card for Double or Nothing apparently was leaked by The Observer. Well, not leaked, but he gave a little bit spoilers of what the card is going to look like. So apparently he stated that Kenny Omega will likely defend the AEW World Title against Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks will be taking on Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. So it's going to be Omega versus Page and Moxley and Kingston versus the Young Bucks, which I think is an awesome card, and I think it's going to be loaded. But overall, I feel like Dynamite was a really awesome show. I really enjoyed this show, and I honestly believe that next week, Blood and Guts, these people are going to pull a high rating, in my opinion. Now, this week's show dropped, and I mean dropped a lot. They maintained that million viewers. They maintained 1 million viewers for like the last 2 weeks, but this week I believe they dropped to like 880,000 viewers. Correct me if I'm wrong, which is a major drop. But I don't think that I don't think that Blood and Guts will fail when it comes to viewership next week. I do think that Blood and Guts will make it back to that 1 million mark, and I do think that Blood and Guts will be a really good match, and it really gives you an old school take on War Games. Because they did state, I don't think the match is going to be ended in pinfall. They said that it was going to be either submission or surrender, which is the old school rules, the old way of War Games, which I really enjoy. And I think War Games is going to be an awesome match next week, or Blood and Guts, as they say. And yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review. Please like, subscribe, push that bell for notification, comment. And this is Broken Havoc, signing out.